Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Inner Healing Journey with Randy May. So, this is a podcast created to inspire curiosity and to provide a space to explore our inner world, to question everything with openness, free from judgment, and in the pursuit of truth. So, together, we'll explore what it means to take responsibility for our own healing with that greater awareness. Because, my lovelies, self awareness is the key. So let's begin this journey together. Hi, and welcome to episode 5 of my podcast. And thank you for joining me again. So, today we're talking about we are not healers. Now, this may challenge some of the beliefs held within spiritual and healing communities, and yes, it may even ruffle a few feathers. And to be honest, that's okay. This isn't about telling anyone they're wrong. It's simply a reflection of what I've come to understand through my own journey. So obviously when I first stepped into onto sort of my spiritual pathway many years ago, so many new doors opened. One of those doors was healing. And I trained in different healing modalities, learnt different practices. And like many people, I felt this calling to help others heal. There was something nobody really spoke about, in all honesty, and that was nobody ever told me that the healing had to begin with me. I would just felt like I was having to go out there and heal everybody and fix everybody, and nobody ever said, well, actually, Mandy, the healing has to start with you first. Not on any of my courses or anything in the spiritual community did it ever say that you have to heal you first. So, you know, I did. I believed, like many of you do, that if I learnt enough, practiced enough, or became good enough at healing others, then sort of somehow everything inside me would naturally fall into place. And it just didn't. It just didn't. In fact, I was getting triggered more and becoming more aware. So, in fact, the deeper I walked this bloody path, the more I realised I just couldn't guide anyone somewhere I wasn't willing to go myself. So, although you could look at that as a good thing because it mirrors to you where you need to heal, where within you there is something that you need to um, look at to face. So, I came to understand that obviously my own trauma was surfacing, old wounds, all my conditioning and patterns, the beliefs, some beliefs I didn't even realize that I was carrying. And I had a choice. I had a choice. I could keep looking outside of myself for someone else to fix what I was feeling, or I could begin the uncomfortable, beautiful, lifelong process of turning inward, which is where I'm at now. It's not a easy pathway. I've always said that. I will never lie about that. It's not an easy pathway. And a lot of the time, you're going to doubt yourself because you've always been so used to going to on the outside of you, to different beings in the spiritual realms, um, different courses. But actually, the simplest part is you've got to deal with that. And it's not just about the practices, although they are very important. It's about the intentions that you have and fulfilling your healing with what resonates and not actually relying on others to do it for you. So obviously during that, I was realizing that something that completely changed how I was just seeing healing. I was just it just completely changed it. And even though I had my group with my inner healing stuff going on, and we did all the practices and stuff like that, which I still truly believe is part of the healing journey, by the way, guys, I really do. I think it has its place, but it does lead you to the pathway of, hang on a minute, this has to begin with me. And although those practices do help, um, ultimately it's you that has to do them. It's you that has to take the time out to do it, and it's you that has to almost rely on yourself, on your um, clair senses, as I call them, and not to rely on outside beings and stuff. It's got to come down to you, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to have to integrate all of this into your everyday life. And you've also going to become aware of that you may become, how can I put this? I don't know what word to use, but you're going to be almost going into a circle of, like, what I call a healing loop, where you're constantly healing, which is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is my experience, by the way. I came to the conclusion that healing comes up when it's meant to come up. So if you come up against an emotion, a trauma, trigger, whatever it is, that's when you deal with it. It's not something that you continually do every day, um, to do your healing, because I just think that keeps you in the loop. And I do believe also that, we keep revisiting pain and suffering that we've had, and we don't need to keep doing that. We just need to deal with what comes up when it comes up, and having the tools to do that. I don't think we need to go looking for it, if that's makes any sense. I just think it has to be dealt with, when it arises, because I think we can get ourselves very much trapped in healing loop. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could have kept looking outside of myself for someone else to fix what I was feeling, which I did, or I could begin the uncomfortable, beautiful, lifelong, hard process, which is what I've just said about turning inward. That's what you've got to do. Um, so obviously this brought up a lot of stuff for me. So I realised then that I had to change how I see healing, and it was hard because I was conditioned and programmed to believe that healing was that something that you do for others. I was never told it was about you first. So when I taught Reiki, I did introduce self healing in that, and that self healing, for me, was detrimental. It was absolutely needed. You had to have that, in order to go and do even the practices, that you were going to go and do on other people. Because if you are not sorting your shit out, you certainly aren't going to be able to help others or create space for others, should I say. So that was very much part of my Reiki training, where I did do the self-healing, and it was hard because people were having to meet themselves in a place of darkness, really, where they had to face stuff about themselves, their own traumas, their own stuff. And a lot of people didn't want to do that. So, that's their choice, obviously. But it's something that, you know, moving forward, that I would be definitely continuing with, not with Reiki as such, but on a healing training kind of um, modality. I would be definitely introducing self healing. In fact, it would be that would be the healing modality. So yeah, that's where I was. So, I came to the conclusion that we're not healers as such. We can heal ourselves, and we can um, do lots of things, but we are not healers. Now, I know that some of you be like, yeah, but we are, because I said the same thing. I absolutely said the same thing. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand what I mean. So I just want to explain what I mean. So as okay, if we call ourselves a healer, We would be creating a safe space for these people, where we can listen, hold compassion, we can offer tools, we can share knowledge, experience, and wisdom, which I think people would really appreciate actually from people that have gone through their own journey, that they can almost mirror to somebody else where they're at this time. And we can walk beside them, but we cannot do their healing for them. And I had to learn this the hard way. We just can't do it for them. They have to do it themselves, and they have to want to do it. So healing isn't something that happens because another person places their hands on you. Okay, it's so much more than that. Or that give you a reading, offers advice, or tells you what your purpose is. That, yes, it can be very, very relevant. And, with cards, I do cards, but I don't do them in the capacity I used to do them. So they are very much related to what's going on for them now. And the guidance for me would be the energetic, well, the energies that are around them at the moment that can help them in some way. But it's not a fortune telling kind of card reading. Although I do, 6 months, 3 months, 12 months ahead, it's always based on a snapshot of what could be happening in that month energetically for them. So, my work has taken a totally different slant. It's not about what it used to be. So all of these experience, don't get me wrong, can absolutely support someone. I know this from experience, it can, but it also can lead to where they really need to be, and that's meeting themselves with their healing. So, they can create awareness, it can open doors, help us feel seen, because sometimes it's that we just don't feel seen, especially when we're going through this awakening, this self awareness when others aren't. We can feel very much alone. But awareness is only the beginning, guys. I've always said that you always start with awareness and self awareness, and then it leads on to bigger doors and bigger, deeper things going on. So, real healing really begins when we choose to meet ourselves. That's what it's about. When we become willing to sit with the parts of ourselves that we've spent years bloody avoiding. Um, and when we stop asking, how do I make this feeling disappear? And instead begin asking, what is this feeling trying to show me? That's hard, isn't it? Sometimes we don't want to hear it. We don't want to feel it, do we? So this is where transformation begins. So for me, healing became less about fixing myself and more about understanding myself, which is, I think, is harder because it might be easy to fix it, or you think you're fixing it, but actually it's about understanding you. And, there are parts of me that I just don't like about myself because a lot of it is programmed and conditioning and how I've had to be to survive in this world. Um, but I find it more challenging. I really do. It's about, understanding why I react the way I do. And, it doesn't stop me reacting, but it does help me understand why I'm doing it. But, don't get me wrong, guys, there are times when you react because somebody else has, said something or done something, and you bloody well react in the way that you should do, in proportion. Sometimes you have to state and be true to yourself and say it how it bloody is. So it could be that, that while I've learned about why certain situations trigger me. And I think that once you've been triggered and you understand that lesson, or I say lesson, I hate saying lessons because I don't think it's lessons. You know my stance on the world and the soul trap here. But um, the triggers for me would be you try and approach it differently, react differently. But if it keeps triggering you, then you have to leave. You have to leave that alone and just walk away because ultimately, guys, the other person or well, whoever they are, they need healing or they're going through healing or they're just not on the level that you're at. So sometimes you just have to walk away. And then it's like, why I repeat the same patterns, why I abandon myself, why I seek validation, why I struggle to set boundaries. Boundaries is a big one. So healing became an act of remembering who I was beneath all the conditioning, but I struggled with that as well because underneath all that, I still didn't know who I was because I've always been this person, this version, this version. Um, and to be honest, nobody else could fix that for me. Nobody else could even understand it sometimes. So I really felt like this journey was definitely for me on my own. No one else could fix that. Nobody. So of course, you can get guidance. They can hold space for you. They can even ask you powerful questions that can be like quite thought provoking. But I had to be willing to look within myself. I had to be willing to do that. And the worst part for me, I think, was the willingness to feel everything because when you've been in fight, flight, freeze mode, you tend to numb everything, and you've had to numb the emotions throughout your life because that's what you're used to doing because nobody gives a shit, how you felt or how they treated you. So you become quite hard to all of that. And obviously for me, I still do come across quite hard faced and unapproachable sometimes, but that's not always the case. If I don't like you or your energy, I won't open up to you at all. It's as simple as that. I can feel your energy before you even open your mouth. So, and that's not to say you're a bad person. It just means you're not for me. Um, but you have to be willing to meet yourself. You have to be true to yourself. And I had to be the one willing to take responsibility for my own inner work, which is what I did, and I still do, which is why I talk about it, teach it, because um, it's not about making somebody do it. I have come across quite a lot of the time that people just don't want to do this healing. They don't want to go there. But with the world the way it is, a lot of people just don't have that choice anymore. They have to face it, and they're seeking people that can help them with that. But what I am also coming across is that people expect quick fixes. And I can assure you, this is not a quick fix. If you are on this journey or going on this journey, you are in it for the long haul. It's as simple as that. And it's something that you learn to integrate. You have to integrate it into your everyday life and not let um, those versions of yourself, the subconscious part of you, rule the show. And that's exactly what happens with all of us. So I think sometimes the spiritual world unintentionally creates the idea that someone else has the answers, you see, and I believe that anyway. Knowing the matrix and the system the way it is, we are taught to go outside of ourselves, and honestly, it is not that at all. That we can go on the outside of us to for somebody else to activate us, fix us, heal us, raise our vibration, remove all our blocks. No, absolutely not. They can create the space for that, but your intention alone and your willingness to meet yourself is all you need. So, and whilst there can be value in working with others, I totally get that, and I totally respect that, and that's exactly what we should be doing. We have to be careful not to hand our power away, and this is where for me, it got very tricky because working with beings, angels and stuff like that, I was giving my power away because they say that we're all one. We're all one. We all mirror each other. We're all different aspects of ourselves. I don't know. It just baffles me sometimes what we're told. But what I do know is that we have to do the work within ourselves, and we have to trust our own resonance. So if we are working with other beings, we're not trusting ourselves, are we? So that's where I'm at with that. Because the more we believe someone else holds the key to our healing, the further we move away from our own inner wisdom. And this is what I've been finding, and it's been a real conflict for me, going against everything I believed in, to be honest. So the greatest guides I've ever met have never claimed to heal me. Okay, they've not done that. They've reminded me how to hear myself and to heal myself, to listen to myself, being encouraged me to become more aware. And I will tell you that that happened because I did it. Okay. And all the modalities that I did and everything I did only led me to this pathway to understand and realize that I'm the one that does all that, nobody else. Now, back in 2014, I was always told to question everything. Um, and it was something in my mind that said question everything. And back then I didn't understand it. I was like, I don't know what this is about. But believe me, a few years later, I knew exactly what that meant. So I do question everything now. I've had to trust my own inner knowing, even when I've doubted myself. Um, Very different from creating dependency, as guides, therapists, coaches, and counselors or practitioners, perhaps our role isn't to heal people. Perhaps it's just to create the conditions where, people feel safe, enough to begin healing themselves. So to offer compassion without rescuing, to hold space without controlling, to guide without creating dependence, to remind people that everything they're searching for externally may actually, well, it's not even may, it is already existing within them, waiting to be uncovered. Healing isn't a destination, guys. It's not something we complete. It's an ongoing relationship with ourselves. Some days we will move forward. Some days we will revisit old wounds from a deeper level of awareness. That doesn't mean we finished or that we failed. It simply means we're just in this human existence. And healing isn't linear, it's layered. So every layer offers another opportunity to understand ourselves with greater compassion. So, before we finish today's episode, I'd like to leave you with something to reflect on. So, if you've been searching for the next healer, the next teacher, the next course, or the next person who can finally fix what's hurting, I just want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, what part of me have I been waiting for someone else to heal? And then ask yourself, what if the next step isn't finding someone with the answers, okay, but becoming willing to meet myself with honesty, compassion, and curiosity? Because the greatest guide, or the guides, should I say, mentors, whatever you want to call them, they don't create dependence. They remind you of your own inner healing wisdom. And all they do is hold a mirror. They hold space and they walk beside you. But they cannot walk your path for you, guys. They just can't. Your healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about gently uncovering who you've always been beneath the conditioning, the survival patterns, and the protective layers. So yeah, it's quite a big, deep one there, guys. But thank you so much for spending this time with me today. So, if this episode did resonate with you, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with someone that they may need to hear this message. And, if you'd like to continue exploring consciousness, self awareness, and authentic inner healing, you'll find all my links in the show notes. So, until next time, stay curious, meet yourself with compassion, and remember the deepest healing doesn't come from someone else changing your life. It begins the moment you're willing to truly know yourself. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone that might benefit from this. Until next time, remember the answers are not outside of you. So stay curious, stay aware, and remember the answers are not outside of you. They never were. Have a magical day.